It was 9:47 p.m. at a gas station on the edge of town. The fluorescent lights hummed their tired hum. One of them was flickering, the one over pump 4, and it had been flickering for weeks, and nobody had bothered to fix it, because nobody who worked at this gas station cared enough to call maintenance. The bulb was probably older than the kid behind the counter, and the kid behind the counter was barely old enough to legally sell cigarettes. Owen Calloway was filling his car. It was an old sedan, nothing special, the kind of car that gets you from one place to another without asking questions. The paint was faded on the hood, from too many summers in the sun. The driver's side door had a dent that Owen had been meaning to fix for 2 years. The back seat was covered in crayon marks and snack crumbs, and the general debris of raising a child. His daughter Lily was in the back seat, 7 years old, drawing on a tablet with the focused attention of someone conducting a serious investigation. Her tongue was sticking out slightly. She always did that when she was concentrating. Her 2 plates were slightly uneven because Owen had done them that morning and he was still learning. Even after all this time, he was not thinking about anything in particular. He was thinking about getting home. He was thinking about making pasta, the good kind, with the sauce he had been perfecting over the last few months. The one Lily said was better than the restaurant version. He was thinking about the fact that Lily had a school project due on Thursday, and he needed to find poster board before the store closed. He was not thinking about the 3 men who were walking across the gas station lot toward him. He heard them before he saw them. Heavy boots on concrete. Voices, loud, confident. The kind of voices that were used to being the loudest thing in any room. The kind of voices that had never been challenged, never been tested, never been forced to learn the difference between bravado and real strength. Owen did not turn around. He kept his hand on the pump handle. He kept his breathing steady. He was not afraid, and he was not angry. He was assessing, the way he had been trained to assess, the way that never went away, no matter how many years passed, the way that was as natural to him as breathing. "Hey," one of them said. "You. Yeah, you. What are you looking at?" Owen looked at the pump. The numbers were ticking up slowly. He had 6 gallons left. He calculated how long that would take. About 4 minutes, maybe a little less. "I'm not looking at anything," he said. Calm, steady, the voice of a man who had learned, a long time ago, that the best way to avoid a fight was to not give anyone a reason to start one. The men circled around him. He could see them now. 3 of them. White guys, late 20s, early 30s. Jeans, hoodies, leather jackets. The kind of men who were looking for something to prove. To themselves, to each other, to anyone who happened to be in their path. "Bullshit," the second one said. "You were looking at us." "I wasn't." "Are you calling me a liar?" Owen looked at him. Just for a second. Just long enough to take in the details. The way he stood. The way he held his shoulders. The way his hands were half curled into fists. Not a fighter. Someone who wanted to look like one. Someone who had never actually been in a situation where the stakes were real. "No," Owen said. "I'm not calling you anything. I'm just trying to get gas." The first one stepped closer. Too close. Owen could smell beer and cheap cologne, and the particular scent of someone who had been drinking for a while and was not planning on stopping. "You got a kid in there," he said, nodding toward the car. "That's cute. What are you going to do about us? You going to call the cops? You going to try to fight us?" Owen said nothing. The man pushed him. It wasn't a hard push. It was meant to be aggressive, a shove, a test. The kind of thing that was supposed to make him stumble, supposed to make him look weak. The kind of thing that was supposed to establish dominance in the most pathetic way possible. Owen stumbled back against the car. He did not react the way they expected. He did not swing. He did not shout. He did not cower. He just pushed himself off the car and stood up straight and looked at them with the same calm expression he had worn the entire time. And in the stumble, his sleeve rode up, just a few inches, just enough. The tattoo was small, faded, blue ink on his left forearm, a little smudged with age. To someone who didn't know what it was, it might have looked like nothing, just old ink, just a shape, just something a kid got on a drunken night. But they knew what it was. They had seen it before, in movies, in documentaries, on the arms of men they had been told to respect and fear. A trident, the seal trident. The air changed. The man who had pushed him took a step back. Then another. His eyes were wide. He looked like he wanted to say something, but the words wouldn't form. His mouth opened and closed like a fish. "Oh," he said finally. "Oh shit." Owen looked at him. Still calm. Still steady. Still the same man who had just been pushed and done nothing. "I'm just here to get gas," he said. "That's all I'm doing. I'm just here to get gas." The man nodded. Too quickly. His friends were already backing away, their faces pale, their bravado gone like smoke in the wind. "Okay," the man said. "Okay. We didn't mean anything. We were just—" "Go," Owen said. They went. They walked away fast, their boots echoing on the concrete, disappearing into the night, without looking back. They didn't run. They still had some pride left, some last shred of dignity. But they moved with the speed of men who understood exactly how close they had come. Owen stood there for a long moment. Then he took a breath, let it out slowly, turned back to the pump. The numbers were still ticking up. He finished filling the car. He put the pump back in the cradle. He opened the driver's door and slid into the seat and looked at his daughter in the rearview mirror. She was still drawing. She had not looked up once. "Dad," she said, without looking up. "Yeah, honey. Is everything okay?" He looked at her. 7 years old, dark eyes. 2 plates that were slightly uneven because he had done them that morning, and he wasn't very good at it yet. She trusted him completely. She had never seen him afraid, so she had no reason to be afraid herself. That was the gift he had given her. "Everything's fine," he said. "Just fine." She went back to her drawing. Owen Calloway was 38 years old, and he had been a lot of things. He had been a son, a brother, a husband, a widower. He had been a student and a soldier and a man who had gone places most people would never see and done things most people would never understand. He had been a Navy SEAL for 12 years. 12 years of his life, from 22 to 34. 12 years of training that pushed him beyond every limit he thought he had, and then pushed him further. 12 years of brotherhood that was tighter than any family he had ever known. 12 years of service that had taken him to places he still couldn't talk about. Not because he was sworn to secrecy, but because some things didn't fit into words. He had served on 5 deployments. He had been in places where the air smelled like burning and the ground was never solid beneath his feet. He had been in places where the sun was so hot it burned through your clothes, and the cold was so sharp it cracked your skin. He had been in places where the only thing between him and death was the man next to him, and that was enough. He had lost people, friends, brothers, men who had been next to him one moment and gone the next. Men whose names he carried in his memory the way he carried everything else, quietly, without ceremony. Men whose faces he saw in his dreams and in the quiet moments when he wasn't thinking about anything in particular. He had done things that haunted him and things that made him proud and things that were somewhere in between. And then he had left. He left because his wife was sick. It had started small. A cough that wouldn't go away. Fatigue that seemed to come from nowhere. The kind of thing you don't worry about at first, because everyone gets tired, everyone gets sick, everyone has a cough that lingers. But it didn't go away. And the tests came back, and the doctors used words that Owen had never heard before, and suddenly everything changed. His wife's name was Rachel. She was 34 years old when she was diagnosed. She was bright and warm and funny, the kind of person who could walk into a room and make everyone in it feel better just by being there. She had been his rock through the long deployments, the hard nights, the times when he came home and couldn't talk about what he had seen. And now she was the one who needed him. He had been away too much. He had missed birthdays and anniversaries and the small, ordinary moments that made up a life. He had been present in the big moments, the births, the funerals, the important things, but the small moments, the daily ones, those had slipped through his fingers. He looked at her hospital room and realized that the most important mission he would ever have was being here, with her, for her. He left the Navy. It wasn't an easy decision. It wasn't a simple one. It was the hardest thing he had ever done. Harder than BUD/S. Harder than any deployment. Harder than any of the things he had been trained to do. But it was the right one. He came home and was by her side for the last year of her life. He was there for the treatments and the hospital visits and the long nights when she couldn't sleep. He was there for the small moments, the cups of tea, the quiet conversations, The way she still smiled even when she was tired. He was there when she died. After Rachel died. He was a lot of things that did not have names. He was grief and exhaustion, and the kind of emptiness that doesn't go away, just gets easier to carry. He was the father who held his crying daughter and didn't know what to tell her. He was the man who woke up in the middle of the night and stared at the ceiling and wondered how he was supposed to do this alone. Lily was 3 years old when her mother died. She was too young to understand what had happened, but old enough to feel the absence. She had asked for her mother in the mornings. She had looked for her in the rooms of the house. Owen had held her and told her that her mother was in heaven, that she was watching over them, that she loved them both more than anything in the world. He had believed it, even when it felt like the world had collapsed around them. And then, slowly, he had become something else. He had become a father who could braid hair, a father who knew how to make macaroni and cheese from a box and pancakes from a mix, a father who showed up at school events and parent-teacher conferences and read bedtime stories with voices for every character. He had become the kind of man who changed light bulbs and fixed broken cabinets and worked a job that was beneath his training because it was close to home and paid the bills and let him pick up his daughter at 3:15 every single day. He didn't talk about who he used to be. Not because he was ashamed of it. He wasn't. He had been proud of his service. He had been proud of the men he had served with. He still was. But that part of his life was over. The man he was now was a father. The man he was now was someone who could be pushed in a gas station and not push back. Someone who could be threatened and not threaten. Someone who could let men walk away, because that was what he wanted, to be able to look at himself in a mirror and know that he had chosen peace. The tattoo was a reminder of who he used to be. Not something he showed off. Not something he talked about. Just something that was there, faded on his forearm. A piece of his history he carried with him the way everyone carries their history, in the choices they make, in the quiet they choose, in the person they decide to become. The tattoo was not a dramatic thing. It was small, maybe 2 inches long, on the inside of his left forearm, just below the elbow. A trident with the head of an eagle, the classic Navy SEAL insignia, the symbol of a brotherhood that was as tight as any family he had ever known. He had gotten it when he was 23, fresh out of basic underwater demolition/SEAL training, young and sure and convinced he was invincible. He had been right about some of that and wrong about the rest. The ink had faded over the years, not from age so much as from exposure. He had spent so much time in the sun, in the salt, in the elements, that the blue had softened into something grayer, something older, something that looked like it had been there a long time. It was not a tattoo that said anything. It did not have words. It did not have dates. It was just the symbol, the trident, the eagle, the shape that said everything it needed to say to the people who knew what it meant. Owen had been wearing long sleeves all winter. The tattoo was hidden most of the time, not because he was hiding it, but because he was cold. It was just one of those things, a part of his body that had a story attached to it, a story he didn't tell. To someone who didn't know, the tattoo was just a tattoo. But to someone who did know, someone who had served, someone who had trained, someone who had been part of that world, it was everything. It was a symbol of the hardest training in the world. It was a symbol of a brotherhood that could not be broken. It was a symbol of sacrifice and service and the willingness to do things that most people could not even imagine. It was also a symbol of loss. Owen had worn that tattoo while he carried his brothers off the battlefield. He had worn it while he sat in hospital rooms and held the hands of men who would never walk again. He had worn it while he looked at photographs of the ones who didn't come home. Every time he looked at it, he remembered. Not the pain, not exactly. The brotherhood, the sense of being part of something bigger than himself, the knowledge that he had done something that mattered. He didn't talk about it. He didn't need to. The tattoo spoke for itself. The man who had pushed him was named something. Owen didn't know what, didn't care, but he was the kind of man who had never really been tested. He had never been in a situation where he was the smaller one, the weaker one, the one who needed to back down. He had never been forced to understand that there were people in this world who could break him without even trying. Until now. When he saw the tattoo, something shifted in his face. It wasn't fear exactly. It was recognition, the sudden, undeniable understanding of who he was looking at. He had seen movies about men like Owen. He had heard stories about men like Owen. He had been told his whole life that men like Owen were the elite, the best, the kind of men who could kill with their bare hands and not break a sweat. He didn't know whether that was true about Owen, but he didn't want to find out. "Oh," he said. "Oh, shit." He stepped back. His friend stepped back. The bravado they had been carrying like a shield crumbled. They were not prepared for this. They had been looking for someone to push around, someone to prove themselves against, someone who would cower or fight or do something that made them feel powerful. They had not expected this. They had not expected the quiet. They had not expected the stillness. They had not expected the calm, steady eyes of a man who could have hurt them, who had the training, the skill, the muscle memory, and who was choosing not to. Owen looked at them. He didn't say anything. He didn't need to. "Okay," the man said. "Okay. We didn't mean anything. We were just—" "Go," Owen said. They went. They walked away fast, their boots echoing on the concrete, disappearing into the night, without looking back. Owen watched them go. He watched the way their shoulders hunched, the way their bravado had collapsed into something smaller. He watched the way they didn't turn around, didn't try to save face, didn't do anything except get as far away from him as possible. He felt nothing. Not satisfaction, not anger, not pride, just the quiet exhaustion of a man who had been pushed and had chosen not to push back. He turned back to the pump. The numbers were still ticking up. He stood there for a long moment, staring at the pump. The numbers ticked up slowly, $1, $2, $3. He thought about what had just happened. He thought about the look on the man's face when he saw the tattoo, the way his eyes had gone wide, the way his bravado had crumbled like sand. He thought about what could have happened if he had reacted differently, if he had swung, if he had let the training take over, let the muscle memory do what it was designed to do. He could have hurt them. He could have broken them. It would have been easy. It would have been fast. It would have been almost automatic. But he hadn't, because his daughter was in the car, because she was watching, because the man he wanted to be was not the man who hurt people in gas station parking lots. He took a breath, let it out slowly, finished filling the car. The thing about being a SEAL was that it never really left you. The training was too deep. The instincts were too strong. The muscle memory was too ingrained. If someone had attacked him, if someone had actually thrown a punch, pulled a knife, done something that required a response, Owen's body would have reacted before his mind caught up. That was what the training did. That was what 12 years did. He could have taken them apart in seconds. 3 men, all of them younger than him, none of them with any real training. It would have been easy. It would have been fast. It would have been almost automatic. He knew exactly how to do it. He knew which pressure points would drop a man instantly. He knew how to use a man's weight against him. He knew how to disarm, disable, neutralize. He had been trained to do things that most people couldn't even imagine. But he had learned something in the years since he left the service. He had learned that the choice to fight was not the same as the ability to fight. He had learned that sometimes the strongest thing you could do was nothing, that the quietest choice was the most powerful one. He had learned that the man who walks away is often stronger than the man who stays. He could have hurt them. He could have made them regret ever approaching him. But he didn't, because his daughter was in the car, because she was watching, because the man he wanted to be was not the man who hurt people in gas station parking lots. He had made a choice, a long time ago, about who he wanted to be. He had chosen to be a father first. He had chosen to be someone who could be trusted, someone who could be counted on, someone who would never make his daughter afraid. That choice had been tested tonight, and he had passed. The drive home was quiet. Lily was in the back seat, still drawing, occasionally offering commentary on whatever she was working on. "A butterfly," she said, "with really big wings." She was not concerned about what had happened. She had seen her father get pushed. She had seen him stand back up. She had seen the men walk away. She had not seen fear on his face. So she was not afraid. Owen watched her in the rearview mirror, and he felt something settle in his chest. Not relief exactly, not pride, just the quiet satisfaction of knowing that he had done the right thing. He had not given in to the anger. He had not shown them what he was capable of. He had protected his daughter in the most important way, by being someone she could trust. They pulled into the driveway. The house was dark, the way houses are when no one is home, but Owen had left a light on in the kitchen. A small thing, a practical thing. the kind of thing that made the house feel less empty when they returned. They went inside. He made pasta. Lily drew at the kitchen table. The kitchen was warm. The kitchen was the heart of the house. It was small, a little cramped, a little dated, with countertops that were not quite level and cabinets that needed to be replaced. But it was where they ate and talked and did homework and made plans for the weekend. It was where Owen told stories about the things he had seen. Not the hard ones, not the ones with blood, but the ones with sunrises and oceans and people he had met in places most people would never go. It was where Lily told him about her day, about friends and teachers and the butterflies in the garden. It was where they were now, in the quiet after dinner, the dishes done, the homework finished, the only sound the soft hum of the refrigerator and the occasional rustle of pages. Owen looked at his arm. The tattoo was visible, the trident catching the light. He remembered getting it. The needle, the pain, the feeling of being part of something bigger than himself. He remembered the men he had served with, the ones who had become his brothers. He remembered the ones he had lost. He remembered all of it. But he also remembered the moment he had chosen to leave, the moment he had realized that the most important thing he could do was be present. He was present now. That was what mattered. After dinner, Lily was doing her homework at the kitchen table. Owen was washing the dishes, the warm water running over his hands, the small trident tattoo visible on his arm as he worked. "Dad," Lily said. "Yeah, honey. Did you used to be a hero?" He stopped, just for a second, just long enough to notice the question. "Why do you ask?" he said. She was looking at her drawing, not at him. "Those men at the gas station," she said. "They saw your tattoo, and they got scared. And you didn't even do anything. You just stood there." He dried his hands, walked to the table, sat down across from her. "There are different kinds of people in the world," he said. "Some people want to hurt other people. Some people want to prove something. And some people just want to be left alone. Which one are you?" He looked at her, 7 years old, with her mother's dark eyes and his steady gaze. She was still young, too young to understand everything, but not too young to see the truth. "I'm the kind of person who wants to be your dad," he said. "That's the only thing that matters to me." She looked at him for a long moment. "I think you're a hero," she said. He smiled. "I'm just your dad, Lily. That's the only thing I need to be." She went back to her drawing. Owen sat there for a moment, watching her. Her tongue was sticking out again. She was concentrating on something, probably the butterfly. Her 2 plates were slightly uneven. He would have to redo them in the morning. He thought about Rachel. She would have been proud of him tonight. She would have been proud of the way he had handled the situation, the way he had stayed calm, stayed steady, stayed present. She would have been proud of the man he had become. He missed her. He missed her every day. But he had Lily, and Lily was everything. He reached across the table and touched her hand. Just a small touch, a gesture that said, "I'm here, I'm present, I'm not going anywhere." She looked up at him and smiled. "What?" she said. "Nothing," he said. "Just glad you're here." "You're weird," she said. "I know," he said. "That's why you love me." She rolled her eyes, a very practiced 7-year-old eye roll, and went back to her drawing. Owen smiled. The kitchen was warm. Owen remembered the day he got the tattoo. He had been 23 years old, fresh out of BUD/S, still riding the high of having survived the hardest training in the world. He had been with 3 of his teammates, men who would become his brothers, men who would become his family. They had gone to a tattoo parlor in Coronado, just outside the base. The shop was small and cramped and smelled like antiseptic. The artist had been a Navy vet himself, a retired Master Chief, with a thick beard and hands that were steady as a rock. He had asked Owen what he wanted. "A trident," Owen had said. "The SEAL trident." The artist had nodded. He had seen a lot of young SEALs come through his shop, all of them eager, all of them sure. He had done this tattoo more times than he could count. "You sure?" he had asked. "This is permanent." "I'm sure," Owen had said. The needle had hurt, not as much as he had expected, but enough to remind him that this was real. He had sat there for an hour, letting the artist work, feeling the ink settle into his skin. When it was done, he had looked at his arm and felt something shift inside him. He was a SEAL. He was part of something bigger than himself. He was home. The tattoo had been with him through everything. It had been with him through 5 deployments. It had been with him through the heat and the cold, and the long nights when sleep wouldn't come. It had been with him through the losses and the grief and the moments when he wasn't sure he would make it home. It had been with him when Rachel was diagnosed. It had been with him in the hospital rooms, when he held her hand and promised her everything would be okay. It had been with him when she died. It had been with him when he held Lily in the dark hours of the night, when she cried for her mother and he didn't know what to tell her. It had been with him through everything, and it would be with him until the day he died. The tattoo was faded now. The blue had softened to gray. The edges were a little blurry. It didn't look like much, just an old tattoo on an old man's arm. But Owen knew what it meant. It meant he had been part of something extraordinary. It meant he had served. It meant he had sacrificed. It meant he had done things that most people couldn't even imagine. But most of all, it meant he had survived. He had survived the training and the deployments and the losses. He had survived the grief and the emptiness and the long nights when he wasn't sure he could keep going. He had survived the gas station and the 3 men and the moment when everything could have gone wrong. He was still here. He was still standing. And he was still choosing peace. The 3 men who had attacked Owen were not monsters. They were ordinary men. The kind of men who lived ordinary lives and made ordinary choices and had never really been tested. The one who had pushed him was named Derek. He was 29 years old, worked at a warehouse, had a girlfriend who was thinking of leaving him, and a boss who didn't respect him. He drank too much and thought too little and spent most of his life trying to prove something to people who weren't paying attention. His friends were named something else, Evan and Mark or Mike or Matt. Owen didn't know and didn't care. They were the same kind of men, living the same kind of lives, making the same kind of choices. They had been looking for someone to push around. They had found Owen. When Derek saw the tattoo, something shifted inside him. It wasn't fear exactly. It was recognition, the sudden, undeniable understanding of who he was looking at. He had seen movies about men like Owen. He had heard stories about men like Owen. He had been told his whole life that men like Owen were the elite, the best, the kind of men who could kill with their bare hands and not break a sweat. And here was one, standing in front of him, doing nothing. Derek didn't understand what he was seeing. He didn't understand why Owen wasn't fighting back. He didn't understand why Owen wasn't angry. He didn't understand why Owen was just standing there, calm and steady, like nothing had happened. And then he understood. Owen wasn't fighting back because he didn't need to. Owen was calm because he had nothing to prove. Owen was steady because he had seen worse, much worse, and he had survived. Derek stepped back. His friends stepped back. The bravado they had been carrying like a shield crumbled. They walked away. Later that night, Derek would lie in bed and replay the moment in his head. He would think about the look on Owen's face, the calm, steady look of a man who could have hurt him and chose not to. He would feel shame. Not the kind of shame that makes you want to change. The kind that makes you want to hide. The kind that makes you feel smaller than you ever thought possible. He would tell himself that it didn't matter, that he had done nothing wrong, that he was just having a bad night. But he would know the truth. He had been given a gift. He had been shown mercy, and he didn't deserve it. Owen thought about what could have happened if he had reacted differently, if he had swung, if he had let the training take over, let the muscle memory do what it was designed to do. He could have hurt them. He could have broken them. It would have been easy. It would have been fast. It would have been almost automatic. But he hadn't, because his daughter was in the car, because she was watching, because the man he wanted to be was not the man who hurt people in gas station parking lots. He had made a choice, a long time ago, about who he wanted to be. He had chosen to be a father first. He had chosen to be someone who could be trusted, someone who could be counted on, someone who would never make his daughter afraid. That choice had been tested tonight, and he had passed. He sat at the kitchen table, watching his daughter draw, and he felt something he hadn't felt in a long time. Peace. Not the kind of peace that comes from winning, the kind that comes from choosing not to fight. Not the kind of peace that comes from proving something, the kind that comes from knowing you don't have to. He had been tested. He had stayed calm. He had stayed steady. He had stayed present. And he had come home. 3 men attacked a single dad at a gas station. They saw his Navy tattoo. They backed away. But that was not the story. The story was not about the attack. It was not about the tattoo. It was not about the moment the man recognized what he was and retreated. The story was about what happened after. The story was about a man who could have hurt them and chose not to. The story was about a father who got back in his car and drove home and made dinner for his daughter. The story was about the quiet choices we make, the ones that don't make headlines, the ones that don't impress anyone, the ones that simply show up in the kitchen at 7:30 on a Tuesday night and ask about homework. Owen Calloway had been a lot of things. A soldier, a SEAL, a husband, a widower, a man who had seen things and done things that most people would never understand. But the thing he was proudest of was this: he was a father. He was a father who had held his daughter when she cried, a father who had learned to make pancakes from a mix, a father who had let 3 men walk away because he did not want to be the kind of man who did violence in front of his child. That was the story. That was the choice. That was the man he had become. The tattoo is small, faded, personal. It is not for show. It is a reminder of who he used to be, a reminder of what he is capable of, a reminder that the ability to do violence is only one part of the whole. The man he wanted to be was not the man who hurt people. The man he wanted to be was the man who came home,